I think we continue to be inspired by our people. And I think we're inspired by our community, um, by where we're from, by Michigan. I think that, our identity is so, um, even though we're a big brand and we're out there, our identity is very much tied to where we're from.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Tales, Ales, and Trails. I'm Nick. It's the first podcast episode of 2026. Happy New Year. We couldn't be more excited about how we're kicking things off. We've got Andy Farrell and Erica Vitkin, the head brewmaster and the brand manager of Bell's Brewing from Michigan. I'm so excited about this. This was the first virtual interview that we've done for the podcast. Essentially, back in October, we got the chance to go out to Michigan for a wedding. Had an awesome interview with Founders Brewing out there in person. We were hoping to be able to get out to Bell's. The timing, the scheduling just didn't work out with some availability over there, but they did offer the opportunity for us to sit down and do a virtual interview, which, was just absolutely phenomenal. Talking about Bell's, talking about Andy and Erica's career paths and kind of what drives them and the entire Bell's team to continue making, such great beer and being such a staunch advocate for the community that they serve. I really enjoyed this interview. I hope you do too. It's part of this really awesome string of podcasts that we're going to have to start this year. I'm over the moon about it. We had such a great start in 2025. We're going to build on it this year. Can't wait for you guys to see who we've got in store, who we've got on the list for 2026. A lot of really inspiring people, a lot of really amazing interviews, fantastic discussions, and it starts right now with Andy and Erica. So please enjoy this episode of Tales, Ales, and Trails. You can follow us on Twitter, X, I should say. You can follow us on Instagram, on TikTok, of course, right here on YouTube. Our podcast is also on Spotify. Please check it out. Give us a like, a comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think. We're always looking to get better. We're always looking to improve the podcast. So we really rely on your engagement, your feedback to let us know what we can do to continue making this something that's meaningful and insightful. So without further ado, please enjoy this episode of Tales, Ales, and Trails with Andy Farrell and Erica Vitkin of Bell's Brewing. Cheers. All right, Andy, Erica, thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate getting a few minutes to talk to you about Bell's. First off, how are things going? It's a Wednesday morning. How are you both doing?
Doing great. It's a little bit of a rainy Michigan fall morning here. I'm looking out my window outside of our production brewery in Comstock, Michigan, so just outside Kalamazoo. The seasons are changing, but this is being from the Midwest and being from Michigan, this is all kind of part of the deal, and things are going well at the brewery.
Glad to hear it. That's awesome. I want to talk obviously a lot about Bell's, and I think before we do that, it's kind of important to talk about both of you and kind of your backgrounds. Where you're from, what led you to Bell's, kind of learning a little bit more about your journey, if you will. Can you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Erica Vitkin. I am the Two Heart and Oberon brand manager. I've been with Bell's for just over 12 years, and I was just a fan that got to be on the show. I grew up in Kalamazoo, and honestly, like growing up in Kalamazoo, everyone knows about Bell's, and I didn't realize that it was more than just our local brewery until I went to college in Washington, D.C., and I saw someone with a Bell's hat on, and I was like, how do you know about that? And so it took leaving Kalamazoo to really realize the weight that the brewery had. And, I came back in my early 20s and I had my first legal beer at the Eccentric Cafe. My husband and I actually got married in the back room at Bell's. I've just been a lifelong Bell's fan, and I started in let's see, 2013 as a sales rep, repping Ann Arbor, Detroit, some of our largest, highest volume market in the country. And I spent a lot of time just preaching the good word, doing beer dinners, doing staff trainings. Really one of the only women on the sales team in the state of Michigan. And then I moved over to the marketing department a few years after that. And I have kind of bopped around doing some support from branded merchandise, selling in retail programming, working with our chain team, and now I'm just happy to be supporting our two biggest and highest volume beers and making sure that everything looks great out in the market. Once Andy and his team makes the amazing beer, I make sure that the good word is spread.
Awesome.
Okay, well, for me, I'll try and keep this short. This could probably close out the podcast talking about my
Settle
journey through
in.
Bell's, just because I've been here for so long. So Andy Farrell and brewmaster at Bell's, and network-wide R&D is kind of my primary focus now, but the journey's been long and lots of different jobs. I too am also a local kid, so you've got a couple of local KZoo kids on the call here, which is not, if you look at the total makeup of our brewery, certainly in operations, we employ a lot of locals, but it's certainly a wide range of folks from all different areas. So a couple of hometown kids here for sure. When I started, I'm 25 years into this thing now, and when I started, it was a very different company, very much smaller. We were about a 20,000 barrel company. So where we peaked out volume wise, right before COVID, we were about 25 times that amount of volume. So I saw a lot of growth.
Yeah.
And in the year 2000, when you started at Bell's, you had to know some people to get in the door at Bell's. It was a little bit of a different scene back then. So my journey as a local kid, even though we were not a huge brewery by that point, at least not by our current standards, it was certainly a very prominent thing in Michigan and in Kalamazoo specifically. There was a lot of pride around it. And the way I got my gig at Bell's was my brother was connected. He would take some seasonal work at the brewery in the 90s, and he hooked me up with some of the folks on the packaging side of the business. I got an interview, and I started at an entry level position. So my first position at Bell's was actually washing old school Hoff Stevens kegs for Bell's that we used to fill. That was how we packaged all of our draft. That's how far I go back. And then this is the part, Nick, where I could probably take us on a really long journey over all the things that I've done over 25 years. So
I saw your LinkedIn. Yeah, I know there's a lot going on there.
yeah, I'm gonna spare everybody that and just say that I've done a lot of different things over the last, I only spent a couple years in packaging. I moved into fermentation and cellar work after that. That evolved into brew house, which evolved into managing our specialty brewing operations at our original location, which led into being head brewer in late 2011. And the job is just from there a bunch of different sort of micro things that different things that you manage here and there. But like that work has been my primary work for now going on about 15 years.
Yeah. Between the two of you, a lot of time, a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience with Bell's. I wasn't going to get too much into the history of Bell's because I think that's been pretty well documented throughout the years. But seeing as I do have a couple of locals, a couple of folks with a lot of time spent at this brewery, I did kind of want to ask about, the difference and maybe a comparison between where the brewery was either Andy, when you first started. I know you just talked about it a little bit about how, the production is a wildly different thing than when you came on. But just overall, Bell's as an entity, um, what's the same from when you guys started? What's different? How has it evolved from your perspective over the years?
Sure. Yeah, I can kick that off. I think, what I would say about when I started is all of our operations, retail, where our Eccentric Cafe still is, and the brewery were all in downtown Kalamazoo. And what the brewery looked like in downtown Kalamazoo was adjacent to the pub. We had a couple of buildings that were kind of connected by a courtyard in the back. They had a couple of roll-up doors. So the vibe was very much that of a couple of garages on either side of a courtyard where we had different brew houses and different cellar spaces. And it was, even though Bell's was about 15 years old when I started, or exactly 15 years old when I started, it still felt very young, and craft beer had not experienced the boom that we experienced in, I would say the late aughts into the early tens and teens. We saw a huge boom. So it was still young. It felt, it aligned really well with kind of my mindset at the time, which I was not looking, I wasn't really like looking to work in a cubicle and wear khakis to work every day. So I think that there was there was a little bit of a counterculture vibe tied in with craft beer at the time. That was really attractive to me as a person. So there was a little bit of which I take a lot of pride in for our brewery and craft beer in general. There was a little bit of like, I don't know if misfit is the right word, but it was kind of like kids that
Weirdo.
it was a good place for the kids to go that didn't necessarily fit other places, right? I think a big turning point in the difference between where we were then and where we are now, when we sort of outgrew that Kalamazoo location because we were growing really well. The brands were doing great. The beers were awesome, and we needed more space. And for a variety of reasons, Larry decided, or we essentially needed to grow and build outside of Kalamazoo. And I think that it's just a really in that primary work, where our production facility is about 5-6 miles outside of downtown Kalamazoo. That work happened in 2001 and 2002, and I really look at that as the springboard to the differences in how we were able to grow the way we were. And from there, like it was like a lot of folks in craft, the next 10 to 12 years there, where it was hold on to the rocket ship because we were moving and we were growing a bunch.
Erica, any thoughts on your end? Any perspective? Like you said, I mean, you've Bell's has been around in your sphere for a long time. How do you see from your perspective how the brewery has kind of evolved over the years?
Yeah, well, it's funny. So my first year, there were whispers that we were going to start releasing beer in cans. And I was like, what a terrible idea. No one's going to drink out of a can. And I was right. And here we are today. Like we came out with 4-pack 16-ounce cans, and it was so controversial. I mean, convincing our distributors, convincing the retailers that this was something that, it was better for the beer, it was better for, so many things. And it's just so funny how crazy that was at the time. And now, I mean, it's all cans. And I mean, that's just
Yeah.
such a small example of how different the market is. I mean, we used to have, it was really, we'd have a lot of different series of releases. We had the Wheat series, we had the Planet series, and I mean, it was really like gatekeeping. There was only a limited amount. People were knocking down the door. People were literally following the beer trucks, our delivery trucks, to accounts to get this beer. And it was all word of mouth. I mean, back then, speaking of marketing, I mean, we had social media pretty much and some posters. Like
Yeah.
that was the investment in marketing. Everything else was just, if you know, you know. And obviously the brewery has had to change based on just what the market is. And I think what's been great to see is, while we can't necessarily do all the crazy one-offs that we used to, we still really dive into that ethos of like, we know we make great beers, but we still have to be a little weird with it. Our eccentric cafe is called the eccentric cafe for a reason because, at the end of the day, all of us have our own unique quirks. And I feel like when you can actually bring all of that to work and approach the problem that you're working on with your full self, that's usually how we end up with just some really unique experiences, beers, and really keeping that ethos of the brewery alive. While we are much larger than we were when I started, I mean, it definitely feels like coming home every time we're all in the same room.
Yeah, you brought up a couple. You both brought up a couple of really great points there that I want to touch on in just a minute. Talking about the beer and the approach to the beer, then also, of course, the culture that surrounds Bell's in the surrounding area. I do want to take a small moment. I saw him run through the background, and he is really my connection to Bell's. My orange cat Obi. It's a long story. I'll try to keep it short, but my wife went to veterinary school in the Caribbean, and met someone who was also going to school there, who is from Michigan, and she was fostering an island cat, and she named the island cat Obi. And we later found out that was after Oberon, the beer from Bell's. So we've always wanted to get out there to try an Oberon, and we did when we were in Michigan last month. And obviously it was delicious, but I just saw him, figured I'd throw that into the mix.
Nice.
um, yeah, but yeah, I'm really fascinated by a lot of things about Bell's, but I think first and foremost, I think we have to talk about the beer. And I'm glad we have Andy here to shine some light on it. But it, it it seems like, just looking at that list, seasonal list, yeah, year-round beers. There's a lot of variety. There's a lot of innovative spirit, so I kind of want to ask you about the philosophy behind what you guys are brewing, your approach to developing new beers. Yeah, talk to me about brewing at Bell's.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot to all that, of course, Nick. So I'll try and keep it short enough anyway. I think that first of all, the approach to brewing, when I think about like where our beers have been historically, one of the things that was really, I guess, super important to the way we built beers was a selection of raw materials and our relationship with the raw materials themselves and the great care and time that it takes to build out recipes, design beers, and those types of things. And I'm really proud of the fact that despite the way we've grown, that we have kept that as the main tenet of what we're going after when we build beers. So I think that, from a philosophical standpoint, sure, there are little listen, like I'm smarter today about beer than I was 2 months ago. So to act like we don't learn, one of the great things about craft beer and beer in general is you do continue to learn, and that doesn't necessarily change your philosophy or approach, but there are things that you continue to add in and evolve, and evolving is super important, especially in this market. But I do think that we have done a great job in honoring and holding on to the primary focus of what we're trying to do when we build beer. So in a lot of ways, the philosophy hasn't changed. We make, I think that we make beers for people that like beer. We like beer, and that continues and remains, what we drive towards. And I do think, again, talking about raw materials, we've made raw material focused beers. We try to highlight those raw materials, and that is still very much our approach when we're building beers. Now, as far as like a development approach and a design approach, there is a lot going on there. And we've got a number of different things that we look at. And I will acknowledge that, we sort of because of the setup that we have inside of our businesses, we've got the ability to do different things. For instance, we have things that we know we're going after from a pipeline standpoint, things that we know we are trying to design to have to be part of a variety pack or go out to distribution for different things. Along with that, we still have, and I'm gonna give a shout out to Kalamazoo and the Eccentric Cafe and our small brewing sites, which we have here in Comstock and in Kalamazoo. We still have the ability to go after to explore and go after big and different things in that way. And what it delivers is a varied approach and a lot of different things that we're working on. Like, I've got like an R&D priorities list right now, and like the team, I've got a great team that works for me, and there's about 45 of those things on a list, and and it's like, Andy, man, when are we supposed to do all this stuff? And I'm like, as soon as possible, so we've got a ton of things that we continue to go after. And again, hearkening back to Bell's as it began, that spirit is really indicative of the spirit that started this company off. So I think I'm proud to say that we've held on to that. And shameless plug for folks, when you're in the Great Lakes, if you have a chance to stop by our Kalamazoo pub, there's always a bunch of interesting stuff available to try there that you haven't seen anywhere else.
Yeah, I really appreciate that perspective, Andy. I wanted to ask you, since, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but with you being one of the main architects of beers like Hazy Hearted, Lighthearted, I think about, I'm from Chico, California. Sierra Nevada is our bread and butter. I think about any time they have, made a beer that it's a different beer, but it's an iteration of sorts of, one of their more iconic beers. It's always met with a little bit of trepidation of, this is an iconic beer. We love this beer. Please don't change this beer. I think about, a few years back, they made Summerfest, or they changed Summerfest to a different session hazy. When you're creating beers that, I think, maybe just talking about hazy and light specifically, was there a little bit of, we're not sure how people are going to react to this Two-Hearted IPA? It's an iconic beer. It's been out for 30 years, more than 30 years at this point. Was there any sort of, I don't know, nerves going into creating something like that?
For sure. And honestly, as we started to explore brand families and kind of, I guess what you might consider a brand extension, I'm gonna look at Erica here and say I'm gonna try and stay inside my own lane here. So jump in. I think historically that was not something that we really went after at Bell's. And then as we started to explore that, and there are a variety of reasons that breweries go after that stuff. One of which being, that it, it invokes that trust, that is super important, that relationship between us and our drinkers and our business partners in distribution. So when you are innovating inside of an iconic brand family, there's a ton of care and a ton of conversation. We work really closely with Erica and the rest of the brand team, and we're just very intentional about the way we approach that. So in some ways, I think that the trick, the needle you have to thread is differentiating it enough so that it's exciting and interesting, but then also paying homage to the whether you want to call it the mother brand or the OG brand. And I think the way that we've approached that is to say, like, what Two-Hearted means to us. It stands for quality and great IPA, and and some other tenets that we've identified internally. And we feel like if we can stay inside of those, and then it gives us an opportunity as brewers to do things like play around with different hop varieties, look at different formulations, drive interesting, unique flavors, which when I think about what so not only I'm a career craft brewer, obviously, but I'm also a huge craft beer fan. I love, like you mentioned, Sierra Nevada. I'm a huge fan. Have been my whole adult life. Um, and I think that, like, that's what's important, because that's still interesting to me too. Like, it's interesting to me to see what brewers that I respect that have been around for a long time, what they're going after in terms of new flavors. So yeah, there's to answer your question, there's a ton of consideration. There
Yeah.
is there is concern. We all, we're always concerned about holding on and paying homage and respect. But then we also recognize it as an opportunity for us to innovate and do interesting things that, ultimately our beer lovers, our fans, and our business partners are going to be excited about.
Yeah.
Well, and to piggyback onto that, we've talked about how much has changed over the years. That's really a product of meeting our consumer where they're at. The marketplace has changed so much, tastes have changed so much, and we found that by having some of these brand families, it's just an easier way to get our consumer to find what they're looking for and to feel comfortable. And when you think of Two Hearted, you think of that high quality, you think, it's going to be reliable. I know exactly what I'm going to get. And, if there's another IPA on the shelf or, a hazy, if it doesn't have that Hearted family name, you might not trust it as much. And so, um, you know, the shelf is a very crowded place right now, and so whatever we can do to help people find the great craft beer they're looking for, that's really our goal.
Absolutely. That makes total sense. I was curious about that because I know how passionate people who are fans of the craft beer community can be, and I think that always seeing how you guys handle that and how you guys have kind of made sure to maintain that relationship with those fans is really really awesome to hear. I, everything I looked at when I was looking at Bell's kind of came back to this one phrase, inspired brewing. And I've read a lot about what that concept means to Bell's as an organization and kind of how it drives a lot of what you guys do. I want to ask you both about kind of what that means to you and why you think it's important to what the brewery does.
You want to kick it off, Erica? Go ahead.
It's funny, this question comes up a lot, and I feel like we're always like, it kind of evolves depending
Yeah.
on what season we're in, what year it is. When I think of our legacy brands, I mean, they were born from literary references and music, and I mean, in some pretty unique places. And I think that that's kind of a testament to inspiration can come anywhere, including something like, Oberon is named after King Oberon from A Midsummer Night's Dream, and that's our summer wheat seasonal beer. Like, but it makes total sense somehow. It's finding inspiration. It's finding inspiration really wherever where it strikes, and figuring out how to bring it to life. And to me, that's something that is always going to be fun, no matter how much changes in the market and how big or small we get. Like, to me, that's really the essence of a craft brewery. Like, let's do some fun, weird stuff that has inspiration from somewhere that really wouldn't be that obvious, something that only we can do.
Yeah, I think that's really well said, Erica, and the comments around some of the. I think it does speak to our identity, the inspirations that come from other forms of art, driving creativity and innovation inside brewing is like, that's really a hallmark of Bell's from the beginning. Only thing I'd add to that, I think, I think we continue to be inspired by our people. And I think we're inspired by our community, by where we're from, by Michigan. I think that, our identity is so, even though we're a big brand and we're out there, our identity is very much tied to where we're from. So to some, I think inspiration can come from a lot of places, and I think you just got to you keep your eyes and ears open, and I think that is really what kind of drives or what I think about how that phrase works with our
Well, I
with
mean,
what
and
drives us.
to go even deeper, like Two Hearted, our number one beer, has an oil painting of a fish on the label. And I mean, truly, every person that joins Bell's, they're like, we got to change that. Like, why? Why is there a fish on the label? And the name Two Hearted comes from the Two Hearted River in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which is one of the least populated places in the US, but it's this amazing, beautiful location. And when you go, you're like, oh, I get it. I completely understand the beer now. And, while we've made changes to that label, like that fish is never going to go away. That fish is our North Star.
It's iconic at this point. I mean, you can't change it. Uh, I love where this is going, because this is a perfect segue into what I wanted to ask you guys about next. I've spent all of one long weekend in Michigan, so I'm not the expert here, but it really does feel like the area that I was in, and I think it's probably very similar for where Bell's is as well. It's very community driven. It's very community focused, and it really feels like the places that we went were shaped by the people that support them, and kind of the makeup of them is kind of determined by their area. And I think about Bell's, and you guys really talked about a lot of it right there, about how the community has played such a big part in how in the way Bell's operates today in its culture. So I want to ask you guys a little bit more about that, about how you think the culture of this brewery has been defined by the community that surrounds it.
I feel like it is our duty to continue to brew the best beers that we can, because we have such a dedicated fan base in Michigan, and we cannot let them down. I mean, we're by far the number one largest craft brewery in Michigan. We sell a beer every 1.5 seconds just in this state. People are a little thirsty here. And it's so, well, what's been wonderful is our beer translates nationally and we distribute nationally. This is really our canary in the coal mine. I mean, if it doesn't work here, then we're not interested.
Yeah, not a ton to add to that. I think I would just say that, yeah, I mean, very much our identity is tied to Michigan, and as Erica said, we do distribute nationally, but I still feel the heart and soul of Bell still sits in downtown Kalamazoo. So and our pub has become a tourist destination, and it speaks to, if you're ever really wondering, like trying to understand I don't know, the core or the DNA of what has made this company, I would just advocate for folks to, when you're in the area, take a visit, and you learn a lot about how it all started, and where it continues to go.
Yeah, I would even go further. If you can come to Oberon Day specifically, it's in late March. Oh, March 23rd. I should know that. It's March 20 something. It's whatever that Monday is. It's such a testament to our fan base, because you never know what the weather's going to be. This past year, it was, I don't know, 32 and snowing sideways. We were originally going to have a Ferris wheel, but we had to cancel it because of the high winds 2 days in advance. I mean, it was wild, but we had, over 7,500 people show up. Biggest day ever for the cafe. Every year it's bigger. It's just a testament to, I mean, Andy and the team continue to deliver amazing beer, but it's really our fans that build the brand and make it what it is. And I wear an orange wig every year. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
it takes over downtown Kalamazoo. It has become quite an event. So it's a
Well,
really good call on Erica.
It's like a national holiday out there almost.
It's actually a state
it's a
holiday.
state
Really? No way.
Yes.
in
And
Michigan. Yeah, and we do midnight tappings throughout the country at some of our long-standing accounts because this is one beer that we still decide to only release on one specific day. And as you can imagine, our distributors and retailers love us for that, but that's something that we'll always do. And nope, lost my train of thought. Come to Oberon Day.
Andy, you mentioned the tap room being a tourist destination, and it's so funny because I don't know if there's a friendly rivalry. I don't know enough about the Michigan breweries scene to speak on it, but I was talking to Jeremy from Founders when I was out there, and I was like, hey, it's Beer City USA up here in Grand Rapids, like where should I go? Like if I'm trying to check out other breweries, and he goes, dude, if you have the time, like to take the trip down, like Bell's is absolutely worth the trip. Like he's like, it is something else out there. So I didn't get to take the trip, which means I got to make another trip out. But I just found that really kind of inspiring that another brewery 45 minutes away would say, hey, you got to go check out Bell's. Like it's something to see.
yeah, for sure. So Jeremy's a great friend. I love that guy, and I would say on the beer and brewing side, it is a friendly rivalry. I think that there's a ton of respect between the two spots, and I love from a beer standpoint what they're doing up there always, and Jer and that team are always coming up with new and interesting things. To that point, just kind of tying everything into Oberon Day, and then even some of the things that we do around innovation and how there are some different things that you'll see if you can make the trip. There are different things you'll see down there that you don't necessarily see other places, and Oberon Day is a great example of it because we go at this point. It's become a tradition, a wild tradition with the variants that we come up with for Oberon Day in working with a bunch of stakeholder groups. So this is not just the innovation or R&D brewing team coming up with a bunch of different stuff. This is company wide, team effort. And the different things we come up with are interesting, and we've got plans already going for next year. So I can tell you, it's gonna be worth the trip again for sure.
Might have to make some plans for March.
Yep. Bring. You never know. You might be in t-shirt and jeans, or you might be in
It's
a winter
wild.
parka and long johns. So, but you know what, Erica, they come regardless, don't they?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I want to be respectful of your guys' time. I do have a last few questions here that I think is kind of really important to our discussion. I've read a lot about kind of the brewery's commitment to a lot of different initiatives, a lot of different movements in the community. I mean, looking at diversity, looking at being as sustainable as possible. The philanthropy aspect of it, I think it's $1 donated per every barrel sold. It seems like it's very intentional. It feels like Bell's is being very intentional about supporting these different things, and I wanted to ask about why it's important for Bell's to be so supportive of diversity movements, of being sustainable. Why is that important to the brewery? And I guess we can leave it there. Why do you think that's important to Bell's?
Yeah, it's our fans have made us who we are, and it wouldn't be right not to give back to them. We have quite a few national initiatives, but we really try to focus as much as we can on Southwest Michigan and the communities within. We started sponsoring Kalamazoo Pride. I mean, even before I started working at Bell's, which, gosh, that was so controversial at the time that we would publicly get involved. And we make Sparkleberry, which is a special beer just for Pride events that is just such a tenet of what we do. There are some larger initiatives that we really try and ladder towards. Last year, we were able to donate over $190,000 to Great Lakes water stewardship efforts, because as a state that's surrounded by water, it's pretty important. And as a company that uses water for our product, water is very important. And then, even further, we as a company logged over 2,000 hours at local nonprofits throughout the community. So it's a big part of what we do.
I think just to add to that, I think that it's really well said by Erica. And I think that, that's as much a part of the DNA of the brewery and the brewery's history as it is going after, wacky one-off beers. So I think, I just think that is core to who we are. And the brewery, from original ownership, we've always said what we believe and stand by what we believe in, and things, those social initiatives and things like being stewards of our resources, those are things that are just they're just primary to how we feel in our approach to business, and how we, in a lot of ways, how folks live their lives who work for the company.
Yeah,
I think
sorry, go for it, Eric.
I was just going to say, I think we have to change our small batch to wacky one-off. That's just going to be an internal official change.
That's that's your that's your area more than mine. So
yeah.
Wacky one-offs. All right.
Go on down.
Yeah, right. There we go.
I think I just think that's so important. I mean, there's it's one thing to make great beer, but I think so many of the breweries that are thriving and really successful are breweries that are able to be good stewards in their communities. And it seems like you guys are all about that. So that's really awesome to hear. I just had two last questions here for you guys. I wanted to talk about the current, and maybe just briefly, because there's probably a lot we could get into on this subject, but the current craft beer climate. I know things are ever shifting, and especially right now, it seems like there's a lot of challenges facing craft beer today. So with that, what is Bell's, how are you guys handling, some of these challenges? Are there new frontiers you're looking at in terms of what you're creating, or how you're approaching, the future of the beer you make? People are drinking less. There are lots of other options approaching the market. Is there a new frontier that you guys are exploring in the midst of this, changing environment?
Yeah, we have a pretty unique challenge, along with a lot of other pretty established breweries, of really staying true to our roots and doing right by the legacy brands that we have, but also, evolving. If you do not evolve with the times and the people around you, then, you're just stubbornly staying in your ways for no real reason. So we do have some pretty fun plans for Two Hearted and the Hearted family coming out in 2026. Unfortunately, I am embargoed until November 1st from releasing that, but I'm sure Michaela can help with some of that information. But, for us, it's really staying true to who we are and where we've been, but also feeling confident to continue to evolve, to make sure that we're really meeting our fans where they're at.
Nick, I'd call out that, like, the word you used was exploration, and there is one of the advantages that we have as a large brewery is we have the ability to go after things and learn about things. So like maybe you were hinting at different beverages that we're seeing trending. And
Sure.
What I can tell you is the exploration is there. And, in terms of how that gets executed and what ultimately that means, I mean, those are kind of longer, deeper conversations. But as a research team inside the brewery, we're looking at just about everything you can think of in terms of where to go next.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you kind of have to, right? You're talking about the idea of evolution and adapting to the changing needs. You guys have done that for decades. And I think there's no reason you wouldn't continue to do so today. Um, I want to take this last question for you guys to maybe reflect on both of your journeys at Bell's, and talk about what you're most proud of in the time that you've been here. What about maybe what you guys have been able to accomplish, about what Bell's has been able to do. Is there something for you both that you're most proud of about your time at Bell's?
You may go. I can go first. So yeah, there's a lot there. I mean, so first of all, I guess I'd say when you've been somewhere as long as I've been here, like, yeah, I'm proud of a lot of stuff that we've done. I could go through again, like I have a tendency to, I can go on a little bit, but I'll fight that tendency here again. I think that I'm proud of the beers. Like at the end of the day, that's something that I'm really proud of. I'm proud of the quality systems that we've put in place, and I'm proud of what we consistently deliver to the market. Beyond that, I guess in the modern where we are today as an entity and a company, I'm really proud that we've held on, that we continue to evolve, but that we've held on to that identity. I'm proud of this, the robust kind of R&D innovation, specialty beer program that we have going. I'm proud to work for a place that still cares about that and still wants to devote resources and time towards that. And then going back to the question you asked, a couple questions ago, I'm proud of what we stand for as a company, and I'm proud of who we support, and I'm proud of the people that work here and are associated with this place.
Thanks a lot, Andy. I mean, honestly, I was going to say, like, being here for 12 years, it's not 25, but watching people continue to evolve and move up and get new challenges and overcome them and have some really amazing unlocks for the company. I mean, it's really amazing to work with so many great people. And I mean, I'm proud to know and work with all these people and continue to see so much success internally.
Yeah, that's awesome, guys. That was really inspiring to hear. Can you guys hear me okay still? Okay. I think my Bluetooth died on me. But, well, guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate getting some time to talk to you today. Before I let you go, is there anything else you wanted to add? Anything you think might be important to talk about in the realm of Bell's? Any shout outs, any plugs, anything you wanted to touch on before we let you go?
I mean, open invite, everyone come to Michigan for Oberon Day and go support your local tap rooms.
All right.
Agreed. I think Erica said it best right there. Totally aligned, to use a Teams meeting corporate term.
Synergy. Look at the synergy.
Yeah.
We have a lot of virtual calls, can you tell?
Oh, man. Well, guys, thank you again. This has been fantastic. I really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. Appreciate you.